great way of summarizing how Mars has looked at it. You raised a good point around IT. And so within this, if you think about the Venn diagram, which is coming to my mind here, you got the chief data officer, chief digital officer, and now you got you had the CIO. And so, or you still have the CIO, sorry, my mistake there. So how do these three interact, and what is the role of the new role maybe of the CIO? Is that if I've put that out? Thoughts on that?
So underlying all of the data aspirations, digital aspirations, you still need that rock solid infrastructure, right? You want to be able to build things, and we have the major hyperscalers out there that everybody is moving towards, but it's still fairly new territory for a lot of companies, right? So at Bayer, we've been doing that for 6-7 years, and we still are learning. So how do you help provision those right foundations for the CDO, for the digital aspirations to be realized? That's a huge role that the CIO plays. And that's one thing. Then other foundational systems like your ERPs, those are areas which, again, feed the digital ambitions, but those are not things that you would want your chief data officer to think about when they wake up in the morning. So there are those core functions. Some of those are necessary. Some of those are transformational that the CIO still needs to own for the companies.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of what we're saying here is no matter what industry you're in, no matter what your value proposition and core business model is, all of our businesses and all of our industries are becoming digital. And what that means is there's a vast amount of complexity. There's enablement, there's ownership of infrastructure, there's partnerships with vendors, there's data storage and governance, data transformation. All of those areas are very deep and very technical. And you need senior leaders over each working in concert in order to deliver the value. And in this case, in the context of our conversation, to deliver data as an asset. So love what Naveen said in terms of the CIO owning these foundational platforms in which our digital strategies and data strategies rest upon. I think that's the relationship with the CIO, CDO, and digital officers within our organizations. We're all digital now.
Good way of putting it in terms of the CIO's role and in terms of infrastructure and systems of record, as I'd call it there, in terms of making sure the core ERP systems are operating as they should. Yeah. Now, just if you look at it, the community CDO community in St. Louis and your own organizations, diversity and inclusiveness is obviously important. How are your organizations taking that into account and bringing more inclusiveness in terms of people of color or women into the organization? Your thoughts on that?
Maybe I'll take things back to kind of where Tom and the team started this. We do have a tremendous opportunity to leverage data to drive economic development and growth in a core part. And that's part of why I've enjoyed just being part of this team. We've kind of hit this point where we're looking at different ways, creative ways to build talent in St. Louis. And so, for example, one of the key kind of programs we put in place, working very closely initially with Evernorth, Chris Lamousse organization, but really this whole team has been part of the process, is called Access Point, where we're working with local high schools and underserved communities specifically, looking at finding ways of reaching women and people of color and giving them new curriculum, even in high school, starting as early as their junior year. And our first cohort is underway currently, 25 students from across St. Louis. And we're collaborating with local universities who've been very gracious in their time and providing resources. And then not just putting them through that program, but then Evernorth guarantees that they have a job. And this is just the very first cohort. And like I say, tremendous opportunity to grow it. And so, it is an interesting time because it requires a continuum of skill, and there's a lot of nuance to this, right? It's not simple, it's not easy. And so you have to find the right place in the continuum of skill to make sure we're being very deliberate to drive diversity and inclusion. And Tom, you mentioned this, Bruce Katz, who's part of Civic Progress here in St. Louis, and that program has kind of come together under a different umbrella, but that's our opportunity. That's our opportunity. When you say data is the new oil created opportunity for people that didn't have opportunity before. And data has the same opportunity to create opportunity. We like to say Python's a great equalizer. I know it kind of sounds trite, but if you learn these core skills, you can become valuable. And it's just giving people the opportunity. Talent is equally spread. Opportunity is not. And giving people opportunity to participate and showing them a path. And so it's a program I'm very proud to be a part of. I'm very proud that this group is really kind of helped influence that. And Chris's organization is a formal part of it. So that's just one example where I think we can, as a group, drive diversity and inclusion to drive economic growth. It's just a winning strategy for any region.
Yeah, I think there are probably three ways to look at it. First of all, I love what you were just saying, Andy. It's when you have a good marriage when preparedness meets opportunity, and what we're looking to do is prepare a group of individuals to meet the opportunities of these new careers, right? These digital careers, but of course, we as a group focus on region. Our company has really invested in D&I, in that we brought in a leader over the D&I organization, conduct regular surveys, have regular town halls, implemented a supplier diversity program to help the community that we're in, and the underserved communities that want to offer their goods through Schnucks, that opportunity, which we're very proud of. Also, employee support and development programs, but taking it down a notch into the data and analytic organization that I lead. We have a pretty diverse organization. So our challenge and what we're working on is really from a leadership standpoint. How do we support and be accountable for managing and developing a diverse workforce, right? So, there is some educational opportunity at the leadership level. We want to develop an inclusive culture, one that is welcoming and supportive. So let's identify any areas where that is not true and address them immediately. And then thirdly is the ability to succeed, right? We want everyone, no matter of their circumstance or their skin color, or any other aspect of DE&I, to have the ability to succeed. And if there are blockers to their desired career path, we want to know so that we can help knock them down. So, there is, we're working on a regional level with this group, which terribly proud of. And pandemic did slow that down a bit, but we'll get back into, we'll build some momentum and start to work on that headlong again. Our company at Schnucks has done an amazing job, and then our department is taking a page out of each of these groups' books and trying to do better for our department employees.
That's great to hear, and great to see. And so, Karen,
I think as well, one of the founding reasons why we started to get together in 2017 was around finding talent, and the difficulty in finding. We purposely, I remember the first conversation is, how do we find this type of talent here in the Midwest? It's all going to the East Coast. It's all going to the right coast and the left coast. How do we retain? How do we create? And I think over the last couple of years, I think the focus on diversity and inclusion has really expanded that. How do we find that talent? How do we recruit that talent? We purposely done that by hiring somebody in North America just to focus on that, just like you're doing there at Schnucks, Tom. But I think it started with a barrier that we had, that we weren't able to find talent, and now it's further going into, how do we find the right talent? How do we find a diverse talent? How do we create opportunities? How do we evangelize the outcome of what it is we're doing to make this interesting for people? It's not just a job within the business IT guys. There's an outcome to this that's a huge value add and becomes an asset to the organization. And when people see that from an evangelistic standpoint, they get excited and they want to get on the ship and they want to do this kind of stuff. So that's, I think, our job is to evangelize that there's a great opportunity and to go from there.
Expanding your talent pool through this thinking is fantastic to see, and giving access to underserved communities. I love the example at the beginning where you laid out that there's a job at the end.
Mm-hmm.
you said that, Andy, and it was just brilliant to hear that you went through this. The opportunities there, if you're willing to put the graft in to deliver that. So just coming to the wrapping up here in terms of the final question. You're a CDO. You've done a great job. You've put all this. You've managed to navigate through the CIO and the chief new digital office. You've now got a patient-first experience or a customer-first experience, but the foundations are in place. You're 3-5 years into that journey. What's next for the CDO? What career path do organizations lay out for a successful CDO? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, maybe go ahead, Naveen.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit, referring back to the discussion here, about that one of the things that the CDO, being so close to the business, one natural path for them is to become the lead of a P&L in a line of business, to really get even a more deeper understanding for how things are working and bring their data knowledge to that to bear there. And the other we talked about was more and more towards that digital experience oriented role, becoming not just owning the data, but also owning the experience, because they are so intricately tied, hard to pull those apart. So those are two thoughts that come to mind. I think more and more companies are also thinking about how can we drive our strategy, longer term strategy for the industry, for the company. So I've seen some instances where CDOs are taking chief strategy officer type roles as well, towards that end.
I think it depends on the skill set. Obviously, we were just talking about the career development, or at least I was. What do you want for your own career path has to play into this, right? But as I think of a CDO, I think in the same kind of manner that we think about data scientists. The perfect data scientist has great business acumen, communication skills, great quantitative skills, and great technical skills. A good CDO must possess those same three skill sets, right? And so for myself, my natural progression is into the technical arena. My title is actually Chief Data Officer and Deputy CIO, because my training and interest is from a technical orientation. If I'd come more from the business side, I would take, I could see myself growing into more of an operations role or an operations leadership role. So I think it kind of depends on the individual and their desired career path, but also, how they develop themselves and what skills they possess.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, very interesting question. And I think much in the same ways that, as in the early years of software development, few people interacted with software in their jobs. Now we all have a smartphone in our pocket with apps, which are, some of the most basic apps that are on our smartphones in our pocket are far more complex than even the early software that folks were using decades ago. So the way I see the evolution of the chief data officer role is a combination of what Tom's saying, what Naveen was saying, and that you own a P&L, but I think data is going to be an asset that a consumer, regardless of what industry they're engaging with, is going to be just as interested in as they are today in the applications and the functionality of a smartphone. How do we create data as a capability, not just for our company, but how do we create data as a product and service for those that we serve, our customer base? And the chief data officer owning that strategy and shifting the paradigm on this internal enablement, internal strategy development as data as an asset into data as a full-blown product and industry for consumers is going to be a huge growth curve for that CDO. It'll be think about it in terms of credit score. 30 years ago, any consumer out there probably didn't know what their credit score was outside the bank telling them, you have good credit, you have bad credit. Now it's a functional component of financial planning. Everybody knows what it is, how it's moving and why it's there. I think those opportunities are everywhere, regardless of where your industry is, and turning those data assets that we all view in our roles as products out in the open market is going to be a huge growth. And it'll be the career path, to answer your question directly, is an expansion of the scope of what a CDO does for an enterprise.
So moving into making it a product line, and then as Naveen pointed out, is a P&L responsibility you have for that data product service, which you've created as a BU effectively, or a spin out, if that's something the company wants to do. So moving along those lines is really a key career journey, because it makes you kind of an entrepreneur as well, because you're now innovating and creating something which wasn't possible before you.
And not to be intentionally controversial, because I think where this conversation goes makes a ton of sense, right? If you're looking internally, I'm working with a client now where they're moving analytics and data under the strategy function, and you could clearly see that path that Naveen just talked about makes complete sense. The thing you think about, I think, as a CDO is my philosophy on how we can leverage data as a strategic asset in line with the CEO and other strategic leaders. And if not, then maybe the best career move, again, not to be intentionally controversial, is find an organization that is philosophically aligned with how you think about data versus beating your head against the wall and trying to push on something that's immovable. And so that can potentially happen as well. And so, maybe the best career move is finding that new organization. Obviously, the ideal is finding that path within, but sometimes, frankly, that may not always be the best career move for the CDO.
And contribute to the average tenure being 3 years.
It could be one of those. You were too successful. You were successful in what you're doing and where you're at. So wrapping up here, and hopefully the forum here. Thank you very much for everybody's contribution. We've now, time's flown by, and everybody, your input was valuable in what we went through. Really enjoyed the event. As I said, a diversity of views and industries we're in. Great to see the St. Louis CDO community here really coming together. I've not seen in other areas this coming together. It's really a good best practice for others to follow, because I think the regional view helps the community, also helps the networking, and also helps from a career perspective as you go forward, and the talent pool being shared and knowledge being shared across your organizations. I think it's just a fantastic thing to see and witness here.
We've also made some pretty good friends out of this whole thing.
Same here. And so just wrapping here, I think CDO Magazine, thank you very much from CDO Magazine for joining today. For additional interviews, please visit cdomagazine.tech for more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.